Okay, welcome everybody to our Genealogy Club. Tonight we have our guest speaker, Eric Migdal, who will be speaking to us about DNA. Little biography, he's a 10-year resident of Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. He's happily married with a son, a daughter, and a bonus son. He has been doing family research for over 28 years, assisting clients with family tree building, DNA test analysis, safely and effectively contacting unknown family members. As an adoptee, he spent many years searching for his biological family with very few results. His starting information was wrong and the assumptions he made were also incorrect. So he did DNA testing to assist him with finding the truth about his family and ultimately leading him to his correct family. So welcome, Eric. Thank you for being here with us.
Oh, thank you so much. I love genealogy clubs, especially because we all have that common bond of the hobby and the wanting the knowledge about our family history. Besides history, just knowing who family members are. So it's a lot of fun for me, and I do help a lot of clients with family trees, DNA analysis of their tests, getting them the test and setting everything up for them. Estates for lawyers and Sons of the American Revolution, Daughters of the American Revolution. I'm starting to do more of those. So I like to tell a little bit about my story, which Erin couldn't wait to hear. So like I said, I'm an adoptee. I was told at age 7 that I was adopted, and I obviously had no idea what that meant at the time, except I was told that I was loved twice, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, and Erin did ask me in an email what a bonus son is. It's my stepson. It's a bonus I got for marrying his wonderful mother. So that's what a bonus son is. Um, so when I started my research, when my daughter was born in 1997, the only thing I had was a page of a hospital record and an adoption decree page stating my biological mother as Rose Becker. That's all it had. Okay. So I joined a group called ALMA, and they Adoptee Liberty Movement Association, and they taught me how to go to the library, look up microfilm, microfiche, all those kind of records that I'm needed to find who my biological mother and or father were. And they also taught me how to make those very scary phone calls, are you my biological mother phone calls kind of thing. So it was pretty strange having to learn how to do that, and I got over my fear. They did coach me. So it was a lot of fun to learn how to do that as well. So we went under the assumption based on what my mother told me that my biological mother was young, from the New York metropolitan area, and possibly Orthodox Jewish. That was just based on assumption, what my mom had known, or where she got that information, I don't know. So I started looking for Rose Beckers born between 1945 and 1954 in the New York area, making her age 12 to age 21, so young in New York. And again, I got a lot of people who matched that, and I did not get anywhere. I got a lot of answers to phone calls. Sorry, that isn't me. Good luck. I hope you find what you're looking for. So I kept working on trying to find more information. So as I went along, um, I joined more groups. I joined a group called the Florida Adoption Reunion Registry, and I was told that my biological mother was age 38 at my birth and from a Midwestern state starting with the letter I. So now I had a whole new set of parameters. Now instead of 1945 to 1954, I'm looking for a Rose Becker born in Illinois, Idaho, Iowa, and Indiana, born between 1927 and 1928. And again, I had the same results. A lot of people matched that, but the phone calls I made came back with, I'm sorry, that isn't me. Good luck. I hope you find what you're looking for. So finally, I decided to do an ancestry DNA test, and I also did a 23andMe DNA test. And on Ancestry, I was matched with a gentleman named Norman Fuhrer. And Norman's wife had a very big tree on Ancestry. She told me that I am indeed part of this family because I'm DNA matched to our husband, but I don't know where to place you in the family tree. She said to get in touch with a woman named Susan, and she gave me Judy, and she gave me an address, and I wrote her a letter. 3 days later, I got a phone call from a woman named Susan, who told me that her biological mother, her Judy is her biological sister, but they are half sisters and share the same mother. Um, from there, I told Susan my story, and she agreed to do an ancestry DNA test. And 6 weeks later, I had not one, but two half sisters, and the true name of my biological mother, Bella Fura, born in August 1927 in Chicago, Illinois. So from there, I had the answers. I was able to start building the family tree, and added as many cousins and other family members as I could. And I continue working on my family tree when I can, as much as I can. I have a very good relationship and with most of my family members that I found. And we did end up with a new half sister match on my father's side just this last month. So it was very exciting to find another sibling. Um, so that's pretty much my story on that. So tonight's presentation is on sort of how to use your DNA matches to expand the size of your family tree by using information from your DNA matches to help guide you and assist you in building your family tree. Putting those unknown matches in your tree is the best way of building your tree and learning more about it. So I'm going to start sharing my slide, and I'm going to ask for a, let me make sure I only have it open once here. If I have it open twice, it gives me an issue. Okay, so let's see. I can see E. Spencer. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay. I am going to get rid of the video panel. I don't need this thing at the bottom. So I call it DNA matches and your genealogical research. So I know it's a genealogy club and most people probably know, but I do start off with some terminology just to make it easier for people who don't know, because not everybody knows everything. So DNA is what deoxyribonucleic acid is a long molecule that contains your unique genetic code. Like a recipe book, it holds the instructions for making all of the proteins in our body. It makes your eyes blue or brown or your body tall or short. So what is genetic genealogy? So genealogy is simply the study of one's family tree or ancestry. Genetic genealogy uses DNA testing to determine the genetic relationship between individuals. I regularly use different DNA tests for my clients to assist in building correct family trees. I use centimorgans, the combined segments of DNA shared between two persons, to determine a possible family relationship. And what is a centimorgan? So a centimorgan, abbreviated small c, capital M, is just a fancy word named after a gentleman named Morgan that geneticists use to describe the length of DNA segments. Specifically, it measures the difference between chromosome positions. We inherit DNA on each chromosome from each parent, and we will share segments of genetic material of varying sizes with our relatives. So why do we use DNA for genealogy? We use DNA in our research to find DNA relatives to increase the scope of our family tree. In today's modern world and through scientific breakthroughs, there are several companies that offer DNA testing. These tests are usually done by submitting a sample of your saliva, which contains your DNA, or a mouth swab that collects DNA material from inside of your cheek. The most popular DNA testing companies out there right now are Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, MyHeritage, Living DNA, and Family Tree DNA. So for people who DNA tested already, who are your DNA matches? Most people will know at least a few of their matches that they will find on their DNA list. The matches you do not know are the ones we will be looking at. We first need to determine which side of the family your unknown matches are on. Are they on mom's side or on dad's side? I will be using some of my ancestry matches for examples. So when I open up my DNA match list, right at the top, I have my daughter who I DNA tested, and it shows we share 3,464 centimorgans, and the only one that Ancestry can say as a match is 100% parent-child match. When you go further down in centimorgans, there are options on how you might be related to the person. As you can see, I have several close family members. The top two are my half sisters. Linda is my father's side half sister, and Susan, I mentioned earlier, is my mother's side half sister. And what I did is I color coded them. It's the best way to keep track of which side of the family your DNA matches are on. So purple for my father's side, yellow for my mother's side. Then we come down to a match who I might not know who she is. I want to find out, where does she fit in my family tree? And her name on this list is Shan Anderson, which could be Shan Anderson is her name, or Shannon Anderson. Anderson could be her last name. I want to find out who she is. It shows that she has an unlinked tree, which means she did not attach her DNA to her tree, but she has a public tree. It shows that she is a first to second cousin match at 501 centimorgans. So a pretty close match, as it shows close family. I want to learn more about her and how she fits in my tree. The biggest tool you're going to use when you're looking for unknown matches is the Shared Matches tab on Ancestry, and all the other companies have very similar Shared Matches tools to help you find out who they are. So after deciding which unknown match you wish to study, click on the shared matches for that person. You will see a list of matches that share DNA between you and the unknown match. And this can be done again on Ancestry, 23andMe, MyHeritage. They all have very similar shared matches features. You will probably be able to determine which side of the family they are from. You must start family trees. One for you, obviously, and one for your unknown match, especially if they do not have a tree of their own. You will then look for common surnames and information between the two trees that'll tell you how they are related to you. The unknown match I will be using is named Shan Anderson. Okay. She has a picture up. She seems to be a little younger than me. I can make an assumption that she might be, but don't always assume to the fullest. Take it as a best guess scenario. So when I look at the shared matches tab on Ancestry between Shannon and I, where we tested, it shows my daughter, obviously, because we're on both sides of the family. And it shows she is a shared match with my maternal half sister, Susan. Well, right away, what does that tell me? That tells me that Shannon is from, and her name is Shannon. It is on my mother's side of the family. So now I at least know a little bit about her. I know which side of the family she's on. Ancestry has a tool where you can assign the relationship. So, do you know which side of your family Shan Anderson is on? I do now. She is on my mother's side, and I will make it that way on Ancestry. So I still don't know how she's related to me. I want to find out, how are you and the match related? Based on the shared match with my known maternal half sister, we now know which side of the family the match is from. The first thing to do is to look at the possible relationships to see how your match might be related to you based on the shared centimorgans. Always look for the more common or more probable relationships. Ancestry has a relationship tool. If you click on the amount of centimorgans or shared DNA you share with your match, it will come up with a tool that'll show you the percentage chance of that's how you are related to the person. Now, the further you go down the list on centimorgans, the more possible relationships there are. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of them. At 84%, she could be any one of those relationships to me. At 13%, there are a bunch more. But some of them aren't really going to make sense, are they? Most likely not a second great grandparent or grandchild to me. She doesn't seem that old or that young. I don't have any possible way that she's a great grandchild. None of my children have even children of their own yet. Very most unlikely that she's a great grand uncle or aunt, or a half great grand uncle or aunt. I'm going to get rid of a lot of these. She's not a great grandparent, nor am I a great grandchild. Half aunt, uncle, possible, but less likely than the others, especially since it's at the 13% level. I want to look at the ones that are going to be more probable. First cousin once removed, half first cousin, half niece nephew. Those are going to be the ones that are going to be the most likely relationships. You can also use DNA Painter. If you don't know about DNA Painter, Google it. You can go to dnapainter.com or just put in DNA Painter and it'll come up with a site that is free to sign up with. And they have tools to help you with your DNA results. And there's one that's called the Shared Centimorgan Tool, which is very similar to Ancestry's relationship tool. But you can plug in the amount of centimorgans that you share with a DNA match. And again, it'll give you in percentages the probability of how that's your relationship to that match. So again, you always want to look for the more probable possible relationship. So again, at 90%, there is half first cousin once removed, and then all the way down to 5% for first cousin, and other relationships that are slightly out of range at another 5%. So the ones I really want to look at based on this are going to be half first cousin or first cousin once removed. Well, she has a family tree. I want to look at that right away. That's going to be a very good help to me to find out about family that she has that she said are her family. So again, I have to go under the assumption that the home person under the Niles family tree is going to be the person who owns the tree. It doesn't say that she manages somebody else's tree or somebody else is managing her tree. So I have to go under the assumption that the home person is Shan Anderson. Well, that tells me right away who her mother is. I don't have a father listed, but I do have a mother listed. Okay. So if you don't have a lot of information about one of your DNA matches, what do? Well, start a tree based on her information and find out more based on the tree you build for her. But for this experiment, I'm going to only use her tree. I did not build a tree out too much for her since she did have some information and it made sense. So right away, I have her mother, Karen Victoria Leone. Okay. So now I have a possible maiden name for Shannon. I also have a birth date, though it doesn't look like a normal birth date and death date because it's not in the right format we use for genealogy, which is going to be the day, the month, and the year. But based on what she has there, it shows that it is the 3rd of July, 1949 is a birth date. and October 5th, 2010 as a death date. She also has a great-grandmother listed, Julia Fura, with a death date of 6/15/1958. So I can do a little research based on that birth date and death date for these people within her tree. It also shows her maternal grandparents, Vincent Dominic Leone and Irene Fura. So how do we find information to verify our match's family? So she has information in a tree, but do we know it's correct? I want to verify it. I want to look for information to help me make sure that her information is correct for her family. So use the Ancestry search tool or Family Search, MyHeritage, wherever you want to go to look for information about her parents and grandparents to show how they are linked to your family. There are many places to look for information, like I said, besides Ancestry, including FamilySearch.org, newspapers.com, and Fold3 for military-related information. Go step by step until you have enough to verify what you have learned about your match. Using records to help you find more information to help you build out your family tree. Be careful of other family trees you may find showing your family or your shared or your DNA matches family. Make sure they show at least a few pieces of documentation to verify that it is correct and truly the family you are looking at. So I looked up on newspapers.com and I found a marriage announcement for a Niles, the name of her family tree, and her last name, Anderson. Shannon Niles is engaged to Christian Anderson, both of Madison. She is the daughter of Michael Niles. Oh, now I know her father's name, of Middleton, and Karen Leone of Chicago. Right away, something tells me that Michael and Karen, when Shannon was getting engaged, were no longer together. They're in different cities, right? So there's something to keep in the back of your mind that her parents might be divorced. He is the son of Randy Leader of Madison and the late William Anderson. Now, I don't want to build out Shannon's husband's family because that's not my family, but it gave me verification that Shannon is her name, Anderson is her married name, Niles is her maiden name, and her mother is Karen Leone. So right there from one little newspaper article, I verified information. So I want to do a search and find out more about Karen Victoria Leone. I put her name in that way into Ancestry Search. I know her birth year. I wanted to put that in there. You know she has a child named Shannon Anderson. Try to put in what you can in the search window to help you filter out information that you really want and take away things that you don't need. Always try to check the gender button if you can. What do you find? Well, I found an obituary for Karen Victoria Leone showing her parents as Vincent Leone and Irene Leone with a relative named Sean, with the same birth dates and death dates of the person we were looking at. And there's a burial, a global find-a-grave, listing the same birth and death date. So I know I have the right person, especially since it shows that her residence was in Madison, as shown on the engagement announcement. There was also a Texas marriage index for Karen Victoria Leone and someone named Karen V. Berry Leone. Okay, so maybe she was married a few times. Always take notes about your DNA matches and their family. So I want to look at the obituary because obituaries are very good tools to find information about a family. Sometimes they show a lot, sometimes they don't. I'm not going to show the whole article, but one thing I like to point out to everybody when I do these programs is don't go by only the translation or the transcription of the article. Read the article if you can. If it's a handwritten document and you have trouble reading the handwritten cursive document, get help online. There are groups on Facebook to help you with translations from a foreign language, English that is in cursive, in Old English cursive. There is help out there. So always try to read the actual document opposed to just using the transcription because it could be wrong. So here it shows the transcription of the obituary showing Sean, Shannon, James, Sean again, and Michael Niles, and a sibling of Karen, Laura Burns. So let's look at the obituary. Karen is survived by 3 children: Shannon, C.A. Christian Anderson, okay, James, and Beth Niles, one of her children, who's married to a woman named Beth, and Sean Niles, that does not have a spouse listed. Karen's fiance, Kenneth Ekstrom. We don't need to worry about him because he's not part of the DNA family. But her sister, Laura Brad Bruins, her father of her children, Michael Niles, not her husband. So apparently they're not together any longer. 5 precious grandchildren, Jaden, Maverick, and Brooks Niles. Those 3 grandchildren I'm going to attribute to James and Beth. Why? Because they're a married couple. Sean does not have a spouse listed. I'm making an assumption. I could be wrong, but for the time being, I'm going to attribute those 3 grandchildren to James and Beth. And November and Eden Anderson, who are Andersons, I'm going to attribute them to Shannon and C.A. or Christian Anderson as their children. She also has a niece named Paige Bruins, who is going to be a child of her sister, Laura and Brad Bruins. Right here, I have 3 generations of a family tree for Shannon and her family. It also shows she was preceded in death by her parents, Vincent and Irene Leone. So right there, I have 4 generations total to help me learn more about my DNA match. So here I have a Texas divorce index because I wanted to find out how many times she might have been married. So here she was divorced from Michael Niles, who she married in July of 1968, divorced the 11th of June, 1991. Something I found very, very interesting. A marriage index from the 14th of June, 1991 to Dean P. Berry. So I found that record listing her as a Berry and a Leone, right? And a Niles. So here I have 3 days after her divorce, she was getting remarried to Dean P. Berry. I thought it was very interesting that it was 3 days later. So now I want to go back a further generation. I know that Irene was also known as Ida. Her last name is Fura. She has a spouse named Vincent and a child named Karen Victoria Leone. So do your work. See what comes up. So I have an Indiana U.S. marriage record showing Irene Fura marrying a Vincent Leone. So I have a marriage date, which happens to be right before Karen was born. So most likely Irene was already pregnant with Karen when she married her husband, Vincent. Okay, very interesting. So I go to the 1930 U.S. Census and I find an Ida Fura, since I had that listed as a last name already, as a daughter of Joseph and Julia, with several other people listed. So I want to see when she was born based on this obituary from the census record. She's 3 years, 2 months old in 1930. So she was born around 1928 or so. And where she's living on West 15th Street. I also find her in the 1950 census, living with her parents. Okay. Ida is listed as a daughter of Joseph and Julia Fura, and there's a son-in-law of Joseph and Julia, James Leon. But is it right? Some of the names aren't right, right? He was Vincent, now he's James. She was Irene, now she's Ida. But there is a child, a granddaughter of Joseph and Julia listed, Karen V. Born in November. Okay. Born in November. So, born in August. So things seem to be adding up that this is the right family, but you always want to check. So I built Shannon's tree up. Okay. I didn't build a whole new tree. I sort of used her information and built a tree to find out more information. So I added Irene, Ida, Fura, and Vincent D. Leone, Michael Niles, and Karen Victoria Leone. And then I added Shannon and her siblings, James and her sister-in-law, Beth, and their children. And a niece, a sister of Karen, Laura, and her daughter, Paige, all from that obituary I showed you. Okay. I was able to find that we matched up in my family tree. I was able to go back only a few generations because she was a very close match of mine. So Joseph and Julia Fura are my grandparents. Okay. Bella, my biological mother, is a sibling to Irene Ida Fura. Shannon is my first cousin because my grandparents are the most common recent ancestor. She is once removed because she is one generation younger than myself. She is the child of my first cousin, Karen Leone, a child of my aunt, Irene Ida Fura. So now you can see how I placed her within my family tree. Now this one was fairly simple, as you can see, because we weren't very far in relationship. We weren't far away. We shared a lot of centimorgans, so it wasn't hard to find the information to lead her into my tree. So back to Ancestry's relationship tool, assignment tool. What is the relationship between her and myself? We are first cousins once removed, and I will mark her that way on my DNA match so that I can now look at my tree and my DNA match list and see her marked as first cousin once removed on my mother's side. Done. That was an easy one, right? So what if the distance is further away? I look back at my DNA match list and I find a woman named Melissa Schmitz. Now I have her last name, I have her first name, and she has a tree, an unlinked tree. She's only 43 centimorgans, which is fairly far away, fourth to sixth cousin possible. Now, is that truly the relationship? I don't know. I need to learn. Right back to shared matches, okay? Use that tool all the time. You're going to find it very useful. Right away, she's a shared match with my daughter, obviously. And again, she is a match to my Susan, my half sister on my mother's side, Susan. Right away, how is she related to me? Go to that tool. Which side is she on? Mother's side. Make her so in your DNA match list. That way it's done already. Okay. Now she has family trees. She actually has two family trees. One with 38 people named Melissa Schmidt's family tree, and one with 17 people just named the Schmitz family tree. Okay. Which one do you want to use? Well, Obviously, I want to go with the one with more people in it. That might have more information on it, but you never know. The other one might be more helpful than the one that's larger. But so always check any tree that the person might have. Again, she has a picture up on her profile. She seems to be my age, maybe a little younger, only on assumption. So I go look at her tree and I look at the whole tree, and it shows that she most likely is the home person again, because it's not managed by anybody else. I'm going to go by the assumption that is her. Okay. But she has her parents listed as private. How do I know their names? Well, if you go up the father's line, you see that she mentions the name of her paternal grandfather, Harry Spilko. And she goes back a further generation, Benjamin Spilko as Harry's father, with Harry's mother as Fanny Levinson. Okay. Now, how do I know which side of the family to look at? Am I looking at her mother's side, which shows her grandfather on her mother's side as the name Schmitz and Bertrand? That might be the link I'm looking for. It might not be the other side, but I do have family members named Spilko. I don't have any other DNA matches besides Melissa with the name Schmitz or Bertrand. Or if I go up another level, Sheenan or Bertrand. I don't have anybody really listed as DNA matches on that side of the family. So I'm going to go on the premise, since I do have Spilkos in my family line and Spilkas in my family line, that I am related to Melissa on her father's line. So I want to do research into her grandfather and her great-grandfather. So let's go back, since it says I'm a fairly far match, 43 centimorgans. Let's go back as far as I can on her family tree to Benjamin Spilka or Spilko. Okay. Keep in mind, people names changed. It could be Spilko, it could be Spilka. So I went with the name Spilka. I have a Spilka in my family line. It showed that he was born in 1889, that he died in 1936, that he has a spouse named Fanny Levinson. I'm putting things in that are going to help me filter out information. I only want to look for information based on the information that she has in her tree. So right away, I have a Benjamin Spilko, born in 1889 in Latvia, who died in 1936 on a finder grave. I also have him listed on a 1930 United States federal census, born in Russia, and arrived in 1912, living in Brooklyn. They could be the same people, and as you can see, it has his name Spilko or Spilka. Let's look at the find a grave. It says his mother is Bessie, his wife, his spouse is Fanny, and he does have a child named Harold or Harry, and another child named David. Okay, so this might be my person. I look at the information from the document and I look at the transcription of the document. But I also want to look, like I said, you always want to look at the actual document itself. Okay. So let's move down one generation to Harold. He has a father named Benjamin, a mother named Fanny, and a child named David Spilka. And again, I find on the find a grave that he has a spouse named Natalie and a child named Marty Sue Gerard. So I don't know if you see it, but what I'm doing is I'm building a family tree based on my DNA matches family tree. It's going to help me find more information. So Harold also has somebody posted a funeral notice, and there is an obituary for Harold. So I want to look at the actual document. So Harold Spilko, in this case Spilko instead of Spilka, is the beloved husband of Dorothy, father of Paul F. Spilko and Mrs. Maudie Gerard, brother of David Spilko. And he's also a stepfather to Dale, Ronald, Eugene, Sandifry, grandfather of 14, great-grandfather of 4. Okay, so now I have more information. I have Harold's wife's name. I have his children's name. I have his brother's name, stepchildren name. I also found a family tree online that has the name Sandifry in the family tree name. Now I know he's a stepfather to this family. I want to learn more. So they have him listed as Harold Spilko. I now have that he was born, when he died, who his parents are. I always want to make sure that the information I'm getting from somebody else's tree is correct. But based on information I found so far, it seems to be correct. So I built him into my tree. Okay, I didn't build another tree. I didn't expand on her tree. I added to my tree and made a tree for her. Harold Spilko has a wife named Natalie. Based on the information I found, he has a child named Paul. He has a daughter named Marty Spilko, right? And he has another part of his family that was a step family, so I didn't include it. So when I first made this presentation, just as a side note, while I'm speaking about it, when I first did this presentation for several other libraries already, I didn't have all the information on my slides. I didn't know who Melissa's parents were. Over the last couple of months, I broke down and said, I want to fill in the blanks. I looked up Melissa Schmidt on Bin Verified and People Finders. Based on what I found there, I got her phone number and I called her, which might be scary sometimes, reaching out to somebody that might be a DNA match list, but a complete stranger.
Mhm.
I called her. I said, who are your parents? I know who your grandparents are now. I know who your great grandparents are. I know who some of your family are. Who is your father, since I had it as a question mark? And she told me. I did look her up on Facebook and found that her mother was named Carol with a last name Hansen because she had it in posts. Carol Hansen as her mother. So I was able to figure out that information. So she told me her father was Paul F. Spilko, and things started fitting into place. Again, the most common recent ancestor between Melissa and myself are my great-grandparents. So since the closest relationship is my great-grandparents, she would be a second cousin. But wait, Ancestry said she was 4th to 6th. That's pretty far away. They are Melissa's great-great-grandparents. She is the child of my second cousin. Here is the relationship between her and myself on the tree. She is my second cousin once removed, which again is pretty far off from 4th to 6th cousin, correct? That's pretty far off. But if I look at the relationship assignment, at 43 centimorgans, 21% chance she is a second cousin once removed. Until I find further information that she is a half second cousin once removed, which is a possibility, I am leaving it that she is my second cousin once removed. Since there is a 21% chance of that relationship at 43 centimorgans, I am going to approve it. I am going to leave her there as that relationship. So again, I go into Ancestry, I go to the assignment tool for the relationship, and I put her in as my second cousin once removed. Until I might do further research and find out that it might not be correct. But for now, I have to go based on information that I got from her, from documents, and other family trees, that is the relationship. I indicated that she is my second cousin one time removed on my mother's side, and confirm. I also want to mark her as a DNA match on my family tree. You can do it both ways. You can go to the DNA match and mark her as a spot in the tree, or you can go to the tree and mark her as a DNA match. I'll actually do both. So that way, when you go to look for your tree tags, it's listed there. If you go to her as a DNA match, it shows that she is a match within the tree. So it makes it easier for you to find, information to help you understand your relationship. So how do you continue your family tree using DNA matches? Very simple. Follow the steps I laid out here. Continue trying to place your DNA matches into groups. First, your two parents' family lines, and then as you place more of your matches into the tree, you can begin grouping them into your four grandparents' lines. You may not be able to place some of the matches into the tree easily because they have no trees nor clear documents showing important information to guide you. Use information from one match as a match for a stepping stone to another match. For instance, look for and use obituaries to help you figure out a family line. Look for your matches on Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media platforms that might give you some clues to who they are and who their immediate family are. Continue for each of your matches and consider reaching out to them for information that might help you build a big, beautiful family tree. Now, it might be scary to reach out on Google and Facebook, but if they're a DNA match to you, they already see you on as a DNA match. Most people will, not everyone will, but you can contact them. Don't lead on right away that you know how they're related. You want to get information from them. Reach out, contact them, send them a message on Facebook, add them as a friend, Google them, find out more about them. LinkedIn might give you an idea of what they do for a living. Facebook might even tell you who their family members are. They might list a sister or a brother. Based on their posts, you might see a happy birthday message. Happy birthday, mom. Happy birthday, sister. Happy birthday, cousin. Might give you an idea of who these people are. And then you're going to get their birth dates as well, because now you know when they were born. It's all about being a bit of a private investigator in one way or another. So I like to show this slide about how you're related to somebody. The easiest way to understand how you're a cousin to somebody is by how you are related to them, okay? Shannon is my first cousin once removed because the easiest way to remember it is for every G in grandparents as your most recent common ancestor, how many G's is that? One. For the number of G's in the relationship, that's the number cousin you are. Since the most common recent ancestor is my grandparents, 1G, she is my first cousin. But because her great-grandparents are my grandparents, she is one generation off. She is my first cousin once removed. In the second one, Ina, she is my second cousin once removed because her great-grandparents, 2Gs, as the most common recent ancestor makes us second cousins, are my great-great-grandparents. I am one generation younger than she is. Norman, I mentioned earlier in my program, is my half first cousin once removed. His grandfather, 1G, first cousin, is my great-grandfather, one time removed. But he's a half first cousin because his grandmother is not related to me. I am only related to his grandfather's side. who is my great-grandfather. That makes him my half first cousin once removed. If you don't know who she is, Diane Southard is an excellent source of information on genetic genealogy and how to use your DNA matches to help you further build your family tree and investigate who your family matches are. She was very helpful in to help me build this program for you, though I did build it before I did read her book, Your DNA Guide, the book by Diane Southard. If you don't have it yet, pick it up. You can find it on Amazon. She was at Roots Tech, so she's very detailed in using shared matches and very similar steps and techniques that I use tonight to help you with your family build. Okay. A picture of my biological mother, who I did not get to meet. Unfortunately, she died before I got to know who the heck she was. But this picture seems to be about the early 1950s based on how old she looks in the picture and her hairstyle and her costuming, her jewelry. Obviously, the picture I got from my sister Susan was not dated. Yeah. On one side is my half first cousin once removed, Norman. We are just cousins. I got to meet him in Titusville, Florida during a trip down to Orlando with my family. And on the other side is my paternal half sister, Linda. Again, we're just siblings. We're just sister and brother. We have a very, very close relationship now. So this was our very first meeting in Alexandria, Virginia. I drove down from Jersey. She flew in from Tennessee. And I recently came back from a very long drive down to Tennessee to visit with her. I took the trip with my family and we had a very good time spending time and learning more about each other. I even got to meet her son, who is my half nephew, and his son, my half great nephew. This is my business information, my contact information. You can jot down my phone number. I usually share the slides with you guys, but since it's being recorded and it will be available on the library's Facebook page on their YouTube channel, you'll easily be able to go back and see the slides and the information I gave for the next 2 months that I'm allowing them to leave it up. So you can always join my Facebook group. It's All Relative Genealogy. I do post when I am having other presentations on different subject matters for different libraries, or if this library has me back for others, I will post it there. I try to keep up on it. I do get busy. You can go to my webpage and it'll have more information there as well. So join me on Facebook. I always accept new members onto my group. I do have a page there as well. So take a look and see if you're interested in joining me. I will gladly add you to my group so you can see when they're having sales on Ancestry DNA kits and lots of other things. So I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm back.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Eric. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay, great. Yeah, no need to go further than that on that. I hope you guys got a little bit